if there's somebody that's holding back or not giving it their all, it must be something within them. So tonight I'd like to give you a brief summary of how it works. When you're born, from that moment on, we have learned from the field of neuroscience that every single message you have ever received has been stored in your brain. Everything you've ever heard, everything you've ever seen, everything you've ever said, everything that's ever been said to you, everything you've ever experienced, everything you've ever thought. They now believe even the thoughts that you didn't know you were thinking, the unconscious thoughts. Since you were born, every single message you have ever received was recorded in your brain, just like on a floppy disk in a computer. Through your five senses, that would be the computer keyboard, you typed in every single message you got from your mom and your dad and your brothers and sisters and your friends at school and your teachers and television and everything else, and you got all of those messages, and they're actually recorded in physical pathways, and every single one of those messages that you ever got, you still have, and you brought them with you tonight. It works sort of like this. Imagine that you're walking in a park, and it's like the first time, and there's grass. So the first time you're walking in that park, you're walking along and there's no pathway. That's like the first time you got that message, whatever it was, that something that's said to you, whether it's like you're clumsy or I don't think you're too stupid or you're not smart enough to do that, or whatever it happens to be. The second time you get the message, you're walking along that same pathway in the brain. By the way, what I'm discussing here in these few brief moments is not some kind of occult, new age, metaphysical, I'm solidly against anything like that. What we're talking about here is medical, it is chemical, it's neurological, it's as real as open heart surgery. What happens is this, those program pathways in the brain where you got all those messages recorded, every word that was said to you, every thought you've ever said, everything you've ever said out loud. Every time you walk over to the telephone, you say, "No, I'll call tomorrow," or I'll prospect next week. We're going to get started. Whatever it happens to be, whatever habit you repeat, whatever thought, whatever has formed your personality today was formed by walking over those pathways again and again and again and again. And every time you got that message repeated, whatever it was, that pathway began to get stronger and deeper. And pretty soon there was a path there. And then it became a road, and then a highway, and now some of our programs are like interstate highways, and our beliefs are set in those pathways, and they're physical, and they're real, and because of computer imaging technology, they can actually find the place in your brain where you've got all those messages recorded, and they've discovered that by accident, those programs don't go away. And those programs, it's like in our subconscious mind, that facility of the brain that stores and records all these messages, that part of the brain is supposed to gather all this information, and so it doesn't know the difference between something that's true or something that's false or something that's bad or good or positive or negative. And what happens is we believe we are who we are because of whatever programs got put there. And whatever you got is what you got. And if you have programs now that tell you you're not good enough, or that you can't do it, or that the vision is there for some people, but you could never become the diamond or beyond yourself, or if you listen to somebody who says, "Oh, I don't see why you're doing that," or "That's never going to work for you," and you listen to the opinion of somebody else who tells you what you cannot do, what you cannot achieve in your life, what's happening is your programs, your pictures of you are literally controlling you into failure and instead of success. It's as though some of those pathways we got are pathways that lead us off into darkness instead of into the bright light of success and achievement. And so when I looked at the wonderful people in your business, in this fine organization, and I thought, what if what we've learned about programs and self-talk, what if that could help? The responsibility you have is awesome. Your families are counting on you. Your children desperately are counting on you. Your friends, who may not even know yet why you're so important to their future, without even knowing it, are counting on you. Your community is counting on you. This country and this world, they're counting on you. And it just seems to me that if there's so much riding on this, if there's so much riding on you, and I do mean you, if you and I could just sit and talk as friends in my living room or in yours, and we could just talk, and if I had the time to share with you what's in your future, what I can see there, then it would seem to me that if you could get past those old programs that get in the way, then some of the fear goes away, and some of the hesitation goes away. And then you can walk over to the telephone and pick it up and make the call, or you can make the presentation, or you can show the plan, or you can work your business, you can become more professional, you can develop an attitude that's an attitude of achievement and confidence and success, and not wonder whether you should, and not doubt, and not have to constantly prop yourself up to think, well, gee, we're gonna do this sometime, or all right, we'll try it for a while yet. Raise your hand if you're a parent or have parents. As a parent myself and as a grandparent, I, like most of you, I've had the opportunity many times to go to that wonderful place in the hospital called the newborn nursery or the infant nursery, and as we go there as relatives, we go there and we stand behind this long window and we look in, and on the other side of this window are these beautiful little infants, 1 and 2 and 3 days old, and they're nestled in their little bassinets, and they're just waiting to live out that incredible life that God has put in front of them, and to rise to the height of their potential. And I study people. That's what I do. I study people and I write about them. And I have never, standing in the hospital, ever observed a hospital worker come in, an attendant in a long white coat, carrying a tray full of rubber stamps and stamp pads, and walk up to one of these beautiful little 1 or 2 or 3 day old kids and stamp on the forehead. Let's stamp this one, bad in school. Whoops, spelled it wrong. Well, get used to it, kid. Let's stamp this one, financial difficulties. Let's stamp this one, will never show the plan. Let's give this one low self-esteem. In fact, let's not even stamp that one at all. Oh, what if we could? What if there were a stamp that said, let's stamp this one diamond. If there is a stamp, if there is a mark, if there is an earthly destiny, it most certainly must come now from you to you. It must certainly have to do with taking control of those program pathways, those old programs you got, and saying, I don't want those anymore. Because if you've got programs that tell you what you cannot do, or programs that hold you back, then those programs will hold you back. I started, when I was very young, I wanted to write. I wanted to write books that would help people. And so I started writing my first book when I was in 7th grade. And I wrote the first 3 chapters, and then I stopped writing it because I read those 3 chapters and I realized that I didn't have the foggiest idea what I was talking about. So I waited, and I started writing my second book when I was a junior in high school. And this one was better, and I got the first 3 chapters of the manuscript finished, and I took it to school, to my English journalism class, and I waited till class was over that day, and it was a Friday, and I gave my manuscript of my book to Mrs. Sullivan, my English journalism teacher, and I asked her if she would read it over the weekend. What I wanted was encouragement to proceed and to reach my goal in my life. And I told her that I wanted to write a bestseller. And so I waited. It was a long weekend, and I waited, and finally Monday came, and I went all the way through that day, and then to the last class that afternoon was English class, and Mrs. Sullivan asked me to wait after class, and I was so excited. And so I sat in the front desk, and she sat on the corner of the teacher's desk and looked down at me, holding my manuscript, and she said, "You will never write a bestseller." And then, so as to further motivate me, she went on to tell me that every year in the United States there are 45,000 new books alone written, and that of those only about 180 get into the winner's circle of bestsellers. And she said, "You don't have the skill, you don't have the potential, you will never write a bestseller." And so it was years that those program pathways, that single moment helped create in my life. Only she didn't have to follow me around to give me that same message, did she? We give ourselves that same message. So day after day, year after year, as I put aside those manuscripts, as I put aside my goals and my belief, my potential, based on something someone else had told me that was not true in the first place, but rather based on her own self-imposed limitations that she was now giving to me, I stopped writing. And for a long time I stopped believing. And it was only later, after I began studying self-talk and how you can change your programs and you can take control back of them. And if you get programs you don't like, you get to change them. And there's a way to do that. And I was studying that, and I said, that makes so much sense to me that I'm gonna see if I can try this self-talk on the single most important goal that I had in my life, and that's writing. And so I started using self-talk. And so it was that some years later, not too long ago now, I had the opportunity to attend my 30-year school class reunion, and Mrs. Sullivan was there. I did not remind her of what she had said to me, but I did give her a stack of 6 hardcover best-selling books. I did mention to her that those books were sold in 64 countries around the world, and considering what she had said and what the books were about, I did suggest she may want to read 1 or 2 of those books. Don't you wish sometime you could just get them to take back all the things they gave us that they didn't want to give us in the first place, but they didn't know any better either? What if it's true, and it is, what if it's true that you've been getting messages about you that could hold you back? What if you're better than that? What if you really do have the potential that goes along with the opportunity? What if vision isn't just for someone else? What if vision is yours? What if the dream that you so badly want to dream about this business and your future in this business, what if that dream is the real thing? And what if it's true? Except what if there have been those programs, and I won't blame anyone for giving them to you, but what if there are programs, there are attitudes, there are motivations, demotivations, there are old disbeliefs, what if there are old fears, and what if you could change those? So I was in Chicago on a radio talk show, and a guy called in. It was the kind where telephone people could call in. And the guy called in and said, "Dr. Helmstetter, during the last 15 minutes, while you were talking about how the brain gets programmed and it's chemical and those programs create permanent pathways in the brain," said, "while you were talking, I discovered the reason for a problem that has been destroying my life for the past 36 years. And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "While you were talking, for the last 15 minutes, he said, for the first time ever, I remembered an incident that happened to me once when I was 6 years old, and it changed my life forever. And I said, is it something you can talk about on the air? And he said, yes. He said, I'll tell you what it was. He said, for the first time ever, just now, I remembered a day in school, when I was 6 years old. I was in first grade, and I was sitting in my little desk. And he said it was Parents Visiting Day. And he said, in front of my desk stood the teacher, and she was standing, and he was sitting. So he said, so she was very tall and above me. And he said, and right behind my right shoulder stood my mother. And my mother and my teacher were talking about me. And he said, I remember word for word my teacher saying to my mother in front of me, Jimmy is a slow learner, he will never do well in school, and I don't think he'll ever go to college. Can you imagine the strength of that program? Every time little Jimmy would walk up to the blackboard to write something, and all his friends would call him dummy or stupid, it was that same program again and again, forming that pathway stronger and deeper, day after day, year after year. Now you and I, maybe we don't all have programs that are that bad or that devastating, but whatever programs you've got, they're real. And whatever programs you've got, whatever attitudes about yourself, whatever beliefs you have that hold you back, those are designed to get stronger. Remember, these are, and I hope I can make this clear, these are actual physical pathways that are formed in the brain, and every time you get the same message, you make that same pathway stronger and stronger and stronger. And in time, those physical pathways determine what you think next, what you do next, what you say next. In fact, if somebody tells you that they don't think you ought to be in this business, they've got program problems. And if there's somebody who's negative about you or about this, they have problems. They have their own programs. So you can help that person, but you can't change that person. What you can do is change your programs for yourself. Here's what they discovered, and this is essential. If you understand the next 37 seconds of what I say, or the next 45 seconds of what I say, you'll have the whole picture figured out. The neuroscientists who were taking pictures of it and measuring how this programming process in the brain worked. But these were scientists who were looking for the causes and potential cures for Alzheimer's. And this is what they discovered. They discovered that if for some reason you stopped giving yourself the same message, stopped using the old pathway, if for some reason you stopped using the old programs, they're physical. You have to feed them, and the way you feed them and keep them strong is by using them. And if you stop using them long enough, the old pathways, no matter how strong and how old, the old pathways, those superhighways, will begin to break down and break up like a highway that hasn't been driven over or maintained for years, and it has cracks in it and there's grass in it. Well, that's a good picture of, it doesn't look exactly like that, of course, in the brain, but it's a great picture, a great way to see it, because what happens is this: if you stop using the old programs, if you get off the old path, if you change your self-talk, if you change what you say to the people around you, if you change what you say to yourself, if you listen to the right spoken word self-talk on tapes, if you decide to change your programs, give yourself new highways, what happens when you get the new highways is you're no longer using the old highways, and they begin to break down physically and break apart.